Hi everybody, Shannon Petrovich with Therapist Talks. Trauma bonding. How do you know what it is and if it's happening to you in your relationship with a narcissist or an abuser? Number one, do you make excuses for your partner, berating yourself for not being perfect and justifying the way they treat you? Number two, do you strive to get back to the way we used to be, believing that the love bombing person is the real person and thinking this angry, mean partner is your fault? These are just two of the 10 questions I'll share for you to ask yourself to see if you're trauma bonding with your narcissist or abuser. Bonding is a normal biological and emotional process that makes people more attached to each other over time. Bonding grows with spending time together, doing things together, and being together during stress or challenges. As it turns out, negative experiences bond people as strongly as positive, and ongoing cycles of abuse create powerful emotional bonds that are resistant to change. Trauma bonding is a term developed by Patrick Carnes to describe the misuse of fear, excitement, sexual feelings, and sexual physiology to entangle another person. A clearer definition might be that traumatic bonding is a strong emotional attachment between an abused person and their abuser formed as a result of the cycle of abuse. Since the goal of the narcissist or any other abusive partner is to control and dominate their victim, they consciously and subconsciously create trauma bonding with their victim through the games they play and the cycles of violence and chaos they create. The narcissist wants the person's attention, entire attention and focus completely wrapped around them to supply them whatever they need or want at any given time. The relationship becomes like a hostage situation with the needs and wants of the abuser as paramount and the victim's needs and wants completely non-existent. The abuser keeps the victim in line through cycles of verbal and or physical abuse and love bombing, essentially a punishment and reward cycle. This cycle of violence essentially trains the victim to do what the abuser wants and to stop doing what they don't want. The victim finds that stepping out of line, challenging the abuser, speaking up for yourself, or in any way thwarting the abuser only makes their life worse. So they try harder, go along with what the narcissist says, and their reward may be a moment without torment. These simplistic strategies would be challenging enough for a victim to unravel, but the real damage is done with the layers of manipulation designed to make the victim emotionally abuse themselves. After the initial love bombing, the abuser begins to sprinkle in devaluing statements about everything from the victim's looks to something they said while with friends, to what they're wearing or what they're cooking or housekeeping, really to their sanity and their very being and their worth. This cycle is with enough love bombing sprinkled in to keep them hooked, but increases the devaluing and decreases the love bombing over time to gradually degrade the person's sense of self. They tell themselves they are stupid, or they tell the victim they are stupid, ugly, dirty, annoying, overweight, and on and on. The message is that the victim is unlovable and the abuser is the only one who will ever put up with them. Since none of us are perfect and the abuser is ruthless, they will pick up on every imperfection to hammer home the unlovability of the victim. They're like a shark who circles in on any blood in the water, their predatory intensity finding any fault and magnifying it to the extreme, causing the victim to feel more anxious, more depressed, and discouraged as they try harder to be perfect and they feel more and more like a failure. Gradually, they're berating themselves, saying inside themselves, "I'm so stupid, lazy, ugly, I can't do anything right." This self-deprecation keeps the victim more dependent and is more destructive than even the abuser's words. Since we talk to ourselves inside our own heads something like 40,000 times a day, as the abuser successfully shifts this internal self-talk into self-condemnation, the victim is now taking continual verbal abuse from themselves and the abuser. Some examples. If you burn a cake, a loving partner will laugh with you and help you fan the smoke detectors until they stop screeching, then give you a hug and tell you they love you, and the cake that engulfed the oven and then burst into flames is totally fine. This is unfortunately from personal experience as I tried to bake my husband his first birthday cake from scratch. An abuser, on the other hand, will tell you how stupid you are, berate you about it. They may even bring it up in front of others later to make sure that they drive the stake in deeper. If you're having a hard day and you forgot something or made a mess of something or got a bad report from work, a loving partner will hug you and hold you, tell you you're awesome and that you've got this and that you'll be all right. An abuser will tell you you're an idiot and berate you for taking that job that was over your head, or for putting up with that boss, or for losing or messing up with or forgetting whatever it was that you messed up. They'll use this over and over to drive home the ideas that you're useless and good for nothing. When you're exhausted, you forget to take out the garbage, or you can't function any longer and you start to fall apart from burnout, a loving partner will ask how they can help. They'll see your lives as a partnership and want to team up to tackle whatever it is you're struggling with. They'll let you know you're loved and supported, and they will appreciate all that you do as part of that partnership. And they will help you with the tasks and the chores. An abuser will degrade your efforts and tell you you're lazy and good for nothing. They may do something out of frustration and because it has to be done, but they'll do it with a huff and make sure you know how useless you are. They'll denigrate all of your work and efforts, and they'll focus on what you didn't do and what they had to do. They won't show any appreciation for you, no empathy, no compassion, and instead to continue to bring up and throw in your face anything you didn't accomplish. These are just a few examples, but I'm driving into these specific responses of loving versus abusive partners because it's remarkable to me how lost we can become in the midst of an abusive relationship. In my practice, clients in abusive relationships will often say things like, "Well, I deserve to be yelled at. I burned the dinner. I'm such an idiot." Or, "She just totally loses it when I forget to take out the trash, but I was exhausted and I forgot. I'm so stupid." Or, "He only explodes when I'm late, but the kids were sick and I was doing my best. I have to work harder. I'm so lazy." When you hear yourself excusing the abuser's behavior and berating yourself for not being perfect, you've been trained to self-abuse. We all need to get back to understanding what healthy relationships look like. If your home is not a safe, sane, fun, supportive sanctuary where you go to escape the hectic, often mean world, then there's something wrong. If you can't laugh together, work together, try harder together, support each other, there's something wrong. One of the problems is that the victim believes the love-bombing person is that real person, and they keep trying to get back to how we used to be, but this is a fantasy. The real person is who you have when the early stages of a relationship wear off and settle down. If you don't like or trust or feel safe with the person you have right now, you need to get out. But the narcissist manipulations can kick back and forth continuously. So if they think you may be straying, they can kick up a little love bombing to get you back on board, and then devalue and berate you as soon as you're back in line. As you can see, the abuser's control is increasing as they manipulate the victim into greater and greater dependence, compliance, and confusion. This trauma bonding is how the abuser keeps the victim trapped and held hostage, not by any locks or fences, but by the walls inside their own minds. So here are 10 questions to ask yourself to find out if you have formed a trauma bond with your partner. Number 1, do you make excuses for your partner, berating yourself for not being perfect and justifying the way they treat you? Number 2, do you strive to get back to how we used to be, believing that the love-bombing partner is the real person and thinking this angry, mean person is your fault? Number 3, do you say things to yourself like, "Well, I already have too much time in to quit now," thinking that you need to stay because it's too hard to leave, and that if you were right to leave, it would feel right? The bond is stronger because of the trauma and the time. This will never be easy to break, and it will only become less so. Number 4, do you want out, but you're afraid your partner will become more dangerous and frightening if you leave? This is often true. An abuser's behavior is more unpredictable when you leave, so this is a good reason to create a safety plan, but not a reason to stay. Number 5, do you keep thinking that if you were better at something, they would be faithful, nicer, kinder, more decent, or less angry at you? These character qualities are innate in a person, and they are not dependent on you being good at or better at anything. A person is honest, nice, kind, decent, faithful, and able to handle frustrations without anger, blaming, and demeaning because that's who they are. And also, a person is dishonest, mean, abusive, demeaning, unfaithful, and angry because that's who they are. Neither one of these is your doing. Number 6, Do you feel emotionally, physically, socially, and in every other way bankrupted? You've always had so much to give and felt good about who you were, but now you feel you have nothing and are nobody. Number 7, do you believe no one else will ever love you, so you might as well stay with this person? That you've become so boring and depressed and anxious that no one could or ever would want you. Number 8, do you think you will one day figure it out and figure out how to be better, smarter, better looking, etc., and then everything with your partner will finally be good? Number 9, do you find you hate yourself more and more over time? You hate the way you look, or walk, or talk, or think, or dress, or feel, and you can't see anything good about yourself. And number 10, do you live for those rare, brief moments when you get some positive attention from your partner and you try desperately to figure out how you got those moments so you can replicate your efforts and maybe finally get it right? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're trauma bonding with your partner. I say bonding because it's not something that happens once, but it continues until you make it stop. The longer a bond continues, the harder it is to break. You'll become more and more bonded over time and less able to get yourself free. In the next video, we'll talk about getting free, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so that you'll be notified when the next video comes out. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you again soon.